So let's dig right into that rapidly developing story on the hostages held by Hamas. There are strong signals. A deal for the release of some of the Israeli captives is imminent, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying talks are making progress. Netanyahu met with the troops, telling them he hopes to have some good news soon. He's meeting with his government right now, as we told you, likely to discuss that proposed hostage deal. Hamas also says it is close to reaching what it called a truce agreement. Netanyahu has been under intense pressure for a deal, including from the hostages' family members, friends, and supporters, as you see there. Let's go live now to the CBC's Briar Stewart, who is in Tel Aviv, where some of the families of the hostages are gathered, waiting for news. Briar, what's the latest about a possible deal that you're hearing?
Right, and Hannah, just to set up where I am, I'm in Tel Aviv, right next to the Department of Defense building, and this protest behind me, there's actually two of them. So you have a small crowd that has blocked off traffic. These are family members of the hostages and their supporters. They are chanting for the government to approve this deal to release at least some of the hostages, perhaps around 50. A little bit further behind, a much smaller group, is a group of people who do not want the government to say yes to a deal. What they tell us is that they want the hostages to be returned, but they think Israeli forces should rescue them. They see entering into some kind of deal with Hamas as something that would make Israel look weak. Now, in terms of the deal itself, speculation has been building about it for days now, and we heard confirmation from the Israeli government about how close it is. And we've seen meetings from Benjamin Netanyahu tonight. He called his war cabinet. Then there was a meeting with the Security Council. And right now, the government is meeting. Now, while details of the deal have not been confirmed, here is what Israeli media is reporting. They're reporting that the deal would be built around a 4 to 5 day ceasefire, and that 50 women and children would be released from captivity in Gaza, and that would be gradual. So perhaps 10 to 12 a day would be released. And then in exchange, you would have more than 100 Palestinians, women and minors who have been detained in Israel. They would be released. So what has to happen is, if the government says yes to this and the deal is a go, people in Israel have 24 hours to petition the court against freeing these Palestinian prisoners. So I think what that would mean is there would be a 24-hour window before we would actually see any kind of exchange. And then the other thing that I do want to mention is, even though the deal is not approved yet, the government is trying to figure out just how it will work once the hostages are released. I mean, we are talking about young children, babies, toddlers, who have maybe been underground this whole time. And what government officials have said today in a briefing is that, they're thinking about the kind of help that these traumatized children will need, because some of them have not been with parents or relatives. In fact, some of them are orphaned. And, getting them released is one thing, but getting them the help they need to deal with what they have been through is something else.
And Briar, you've been speaking with some of the people there. What are they saying about this possible deal?
Well, I think a lot of it is there's a lot of tension, and people are very hopeful, but they see how much of a divisive issue that can be. I mean, we see two kind of counter protests here, and there has been a lot of anger building from some of the families of the hostages, because they didn't think the government was doing enough. The government has talked so much about its priority of eliminating Hamas, rooting out all of these tunnels, basically dismantling the whole network and the whole infrastructure, and they think that there hasn't been enough of a prioritization on the hostages, and people are really angered by that, particularly because a lot of them blame the government for not doing enough, being prepared enough to stop these attacks in the first place. I spoke with a young woman earlier in Jerusalem whose friend is a hostage. She's 32 years old. He was kidnapped at that music festival. Here's some of what she had to say.
I hope the deal will become to bring everyone, not just 50, 100. We want all the 240. It's hard. True, we need the kids to be here.
as far as the numbers of hostages, we know that around 240 were taken hostage, taken into Gaza. Since then, 4 have been released, 2 have been killed, and there's all of this discussion about just who will be freed, because there are more than 30 children, dozens of women, and while Hamas reportedly holds most of these hostages, there are some rival militant factions that hold them too, and it's just unclear how that release will work.
Okay, Briar Stewart in Tel Aviv, thank you for this important reporting. Appreciate it.